Ernest Hemingway wrote, "The world breaks everyone, and afterward, many are strong at the broken places." I have been broken and knocked down, but I keep getting lifted up as a stronger version of myself. I frequently get lost, yet here I am, an imperfect and incomplete work of God's creation, being slowly drawn to my ultimate destination. I continue to search for the path to salvation that has been called as narrow and as difficult to walk as a razor's edge. I'm not even sure I know what it looks like, but I continue to search. Join me as I share my experiences and speak with others who walk the path to wellness and self-care. Who knows what we might discover along the way. You're on the Razor's Edge with Mike Murdy. By a little way of background, Louie and I go back, what is it, Lou, probably 30 plus years of friendship. And we were originally going to do this interview last week. Congratulations, Lou, on your 17 years of sobriety. I'm a baby by comparison. You know, the day before Lou's birthday, I had my 3 years. You make being sober look cool. Not only do you make it look easy, you make it look cool. So,
well, that was my goal.
Well,
when I got sober, I wrote a mission statement and I said, I'm going to make being sober look cool.
Well, not many people can pull it off. Not only that, not many people can front for one of the more popular rock and roll bands of the last 20 years in the Roaring Fork Valley and stay sober. That's got to be especially big challenge. Would you tell me, I mean, how do you pull that off?
Yeah. For me, the whole, a couple light bulbs came on for me. And, one of them is I applied the standard of approaching my music as my work. And I've always in concept agreed with the idea that you shouldn't drink when you work.
Okay.
And then I also came to the realization that with very few exceptions, all of the best musicians that I've ever worked with, the guys who are really that I consider to be like a whole tier above me, although, my wife and some of the other people in my life say, no, you're self-deprecating in saying that. But all the people that I've really worked with, the guys who are like working 5 days a week and, making their living doing music, they don't drink when they're playing. They don't do drugs when they're playing. I'd also say that the nicest people and I don't know if there's a connection between the not drinking and drugging and how nice they are, but some of the nicest people with very few exceptions are the ones that are not drinking and drugging. And, it seems like the ones that seem to have ego problems are the ones who are, like just this far below the top of the heap and they know it and they're trying to compensate by having an attitude or by drinking and drugging or the combination of the two. And so I'm not saying that I'm at the top of the heap or anything, but I'm observing the behaviors, what do they say? The habits of the highly effective musicians.
Right.
I'm going to school on those guys and trying to do it that way.
You can't do anything really well when you're messed up. And it's a big part of being stuck and childish and arrested development.
All we really have as human beings is our relationships with our fellow human beings. And if we're taking and throwing drugs and alcohol into the mix, it's going to make it that much more difficult for us to reach out and really make those, connections. And all we really want to do is connect, I believe.
Amen to that. And I'll tell you, I'll make a metaphor out of it and at the same time explain to any of the viewers that we're having some bandwidth lockups and little glitches, and bear with us and we'll edit out what we can. But when you're drinking and drugging, Yeah, you have a lot more of those because your
Yeah.
bandwidth is interrupted all the time, and
Mhm.
there's no free flow. You can't connect with somebody if you're all messed up. So I applaud that, and I think that it's more than that though, because I watched you, and over the 17 years I've watched the evolution. I mean, we vacationed together, our families, and at different points in my life, and you watched me go up and down. But watching the evolution of Lou, that once you got sober, then the real work started, because after you sobered up, I watched you become a sage. I watched you become more comfortable with who you are and in your own skin. And then I watched you turn outward and help everybody else, because I know, I don't even have to be there. I know when you walk into a meeting somewhere in that valley, anywhere in that valley, people know you and people gravitate to you for your experience, your support, your wisdom.
I don't try to shrink wrap or genericize my recovery into like a handful of catchphrases and stories. And I basically walk into any given meeting. Now, I've got my favorite stories, that every now and then I love to tell. Basically, if you hear me speak at a meeting, it is me talking about something that's happened. Usually, I go to a home group once a week on Saturday mornings, and it's usually going to be something. I'll be talking about something that's happened in the last 7 days, and I'll be talking about a specific skill or realization or role that the program has played into me dealing with that problem.
I like that. I like that a lot, because anybody who's sat in the rooms for a while can conjure up in their mind immediately the old guy that sit there like this and has the same story and the same 3-sentence little cliches that they like to rattle off.
They always open up with a little, sober today through the fellowship of this program, and and yeah.
But how much of it is your need to go in to share what you've learned because you feel the obligation to help the others that still suffer, and that helps?
There have been very few times in the 17 years I've been sober when I really felt like I needed a meeting because I was on the edge. Probably namely a period of time where my wife and I were going through some difficulties. And, to be quite honest, I had relapsed into some, although not substance using situations, I had started to use some of the same tactics and coping skills, maladjusted coping skills that I used to use back when I was a drinker. I feel a distinct need to remember where I came from. I love nothing more than being in the room with newcomers, because I have said for years, it's occurred to me for years that I know how to stay sober on a day in and day out basis here at 17 years and so many days. But quite honestly, I am literally in awe of people who have been able to keep a drink or a drug out of themselves for 3 days, because I remember way too well, and they remind me of what it's like, what it was like. And I am absolutely in awe of the process of people getting sober. To me, getting sober is the miracle.
I don't know if I've recounted the story to you. It's in a testimonial I haven't shared widely that I gave at my church about I had a Holy Spirit moment. I had the compulsion to drink, drug, that it was taken from me in an instant. It was I went to bed making a promise to my daughter, who had asked me to quit drinking. After promising that I wouldn't drink, at that moment in time, doubting in my own mind that it was doable, that I could do it. And I woke up the next morning with her laying next to me, and it was gone. And I haven't had a compulsion. I haven't had a dream. I can honestly say that I'm probably the most surprised person in the world about that, because I read, anybody who's read the big book, read about it. It can happen that way. Well, it happened to me. And when it played in front of the congregation, I was absolutely petrified. Now, this is as friendly as an audience as you could find. And
Sure.
I was moved by it. But what I didn't realize, and the pastor had said this to me, he said, you don't know how many people there'll be in the church that day that need to hear that message, that it's going to make a difference to them.
Quite honestly, I had that same moment. It was in a much less friendly environment. It had to do with my wife hanging up on me on my one phone call and telling me that I was just going to blanking have to figure it out myself. And then they gave me my little vinyl pad to go to sleep on. And I was in the holding tank, and there was only one spot left, and it was right next to the toilet. The internal comedian basically says, "This must be my bottom."
Yeah. My daughter was asking me questions here just not long ago, because in the context of an anniversary coming up and not drinking and the like, and she said, if you had some, would you have to start over?
Yeah.
How does the sober police work in your mind?
Well, a lot of it goes back to a conversation I had with my sponsor fairly early on, when I was entertaining the subject of non-alcoholic beer.
Okay.
And he basically, there are some people in the Alcoholics Anonymous community that are just absolutely non-alcoholic beer is for non-alcoholics, is one of their favorite phrases, to be cute about it. And I asked my sponsor, I said, so what do you think about non-alcoholic beer? And he said, it all depends, like so many other things in your life, what your motivation is when you do that. And he told me the story of going to a concert with a bunch of program friends, and one of them had a 6-pack of non-alcoholic beer, and he said he cracked one open, and it was the first time he'd ever drank it. He took 2 or 3 sips, and the first thing out of his mouth was, "We need to go get a couple cases of this."
And he said, wait, I better stay away from these.
Yeah, and that's when he decided that was potentially a dangerous thing for him, and that he felt that right on the brink of the obsession being rekindled or released all over again.
Yeah, and I could say I've got one, the last one, the Lonely Soldier, out of a 6-pack of non-alcoholic beers in my fridge that's been there for probably
since I was there last, right?
No, those got pitched, actually. The fact that I wanted a malted beverage after a long, hot bike ride is fine, because it didn't make me change my behavior, my attitudes. It didn't cause the obsessive behavior that I have. And by the way, I've been lately totally obsessing with meditation. So, I've still got all the same components of the addiction that I had to alcohol.
Uh-huh.
And it's okay as long as I'm not meditating when I should be working, or I'm meditating and I forget to go pick up my daughter, because if I start doing that, then I've got a meditation problem.
Sure. No, I got that way with yoga. Yep. I mean, just a few months ago, I've learned more about my personality or who I am from the process of helping my dad die, I guess, would be part of it. Mm-hmm. I learned so much about myself and how much I am like him, and how much I am not like him in other ways. So I learned so much about myself in that. I learned a lot. My mother was I can't even, prolific's not even the word. She journaled. That has been pretty much the bone that I've been chewing on for the last 18 months.
Well, did Pat journal all the way back, like you're talking when she was a young woman, all the way through her married life?
Yeah, we found journals that dated back to the mid 60s.
Wow.
there is a long history of philandering, and secret keeping and things like that. And so, for me, that was a huge eye opener, because one of the things I identify as one of my addictions is secrets.
That's everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. But I learned that there was a lot more secret keeping going on than I realized, in their relationship. And, when I spoke at one of the meetings that I go to on Sunday, and I basically talked about, I had an obsession as a child with having a secret weapon. That was my, and I actually have to say that I, to a certain extent, blame Popeye for this problem. And being that when the going got tough, he would reach for a can of
spinach.
Exactly. My working title for my book, my Mona Lisa, is going to be The Underdog Generation. Yeah. And it's basically going to discuss, how our generation grew up with these role models and in a very, what would you call it? Just very innocent context. Those pills that were inside of Underdog's Ring, those were exactly like the pills that I was putting in a mortar and pestle.
and yes, I had a dysfunctional childhood that way, right down to, I wasn't even probably 2-3 years old when I put my hands on one of my mom's diet pills. She called them diet pills. They were actually Dexedrines, or double Dexes probably.
Yeah.
And she said she got to sit up with me for the next 20 hours, as a 2-year-old, as I just bounced off the walls. And, I must have liked it because, I wandered, 40 plus years in the desert with that. And so I totally relate, and I think you're right. And I'm going to segue into another part of the history of Lou. That was when I met you, you were a chef, and you were, because I want everybody listening to you know that how much a Renaissance man you are. That not are you just a rock and roller, and not only are you the tech go-to guy in the Roaring Fork Valley, that you're a world-class chef, and that together we serve the Prince of Saudi Arabia and all kinds of other celebrities in the Aspen Valley. Do you miss that?
I'm an adrenaline junkie, and probably the thing I miss the most is being on the dinner line with the fully packed dining room, and 12 tickets in process, 20 tickets in process. Working as far to the end of the wheel as I possibly can, getting the waitresses to start yelling at me because we're performing too efficiently, things like that. Those are probably the things that I miss. I don't miss the aching legs after a 12, 14, 16-hour day. I don't miss the headaches that I used to suffer fairly regularly. I don't miss getting up at 5:30 in the morning and having to go put together a Sunday brunch for 400 people. And, so there are a lot of things that I miss and a lot of things that I don't miss.
Well, and I would imagine you get a lot of the creative outlet in your music and your performance, because the part of the chefing, and I obviously remember you, there was no such thing as weeding Chef Lou. And I remember one particular time when we had a buffet line for the Prince and his entourage, and we're 5 minutes away from opening the door, and the ceiling tile collapsed on the buffet and wiped it out, and you pulled it off. You went out, and what had taken an hour to put together, you did in 5 minutes, and nobody ever knew.
Well, not everybody knows what seasonings go well with ceiling tile.
Yes. The other thing I want to touch on is, and this is probably one of the things that I've never given you enough kudos or credit for, is as a somewhat of an autodidact, a self-taught tech guru, you took what was originally, a fascination with all things gadget and your own work, and turned it into not just a living, but a living that's allowed you to live well in one of the most expensive places in the world. Now, and by the way, congratulations on your new home and all that. And all the while doing that while we were going out and getting messed up and playing in a band and all this other stuff. How's that feeling? How's that happen? Talk a little bit about that.
I have to really give my dad a lot of credit for, he had me, I had a soldering iron in my hand when I was 9 years old, and although it's been a while since I've soldered anything, and it's not really a brick and mortar part of the job that I do now, I was thinking about it as I literally moved 14 recycle bins worth of electronic stuff, whether power bricks, old dead laptops, serial cards, RAM chips, null modem adapters, you name it. I have pretty much flushed almost all of the hardware related stuff out of my shop as a representation of how software, how soft the business has gotten.
I know that you're in the process of moving, but I can say this, that Jan would be proud of you because looking in your garage and thinking back to being at his house and seeing, Jan always had something he was working on, and that you're right. You did learn this from your dad. And is there a Hammond B3 in there somewhere?
There's a Hammond M3, and can you see a railroad hat there behind me? Can you see that, like over here?
No, I'm not seeing it, but
yeah. Anyway,
yeah.
Jan's actually here.
Okay.
I have not taken care of his ashes yet, and the urn with his ashes has his railroad hat on top of it.
Awesome.
Just a little aside, you can edit this out if you want.
It was a privilege to know your mom and dad, and I've expressed my condolences on their passing. I still have my mom and my dad. It's amazing. The genes in my family, though, were tough to kill. That's just all there is to it.
Yeah.
I meant to tell you, too, I was going to share a little plug for Tom Hanks because I know he needs all the help he can get. A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. I went with Mom, and I don't know if you were a Mr. Rogers fan. As a kid, I watched Mr. Rogers.
Totally, yes. Yeah.
The man was definitely an inspiration, but the movie was so well done. 5 minutes into it, I forgot that it was Tom Hanks playing Fred Rogers. It was Fred Rogers to me. It was so good. He's obviously going to get another Academy Award, or at least a run at it. But it was so cool because that's not the story, and I won't spoil the movie for you. It's really not the Fred Rogers story. It's about the relationship with the writer from the Esquire magazine that comes to do it, and the impact that Fred had in his life. And I just think it was a movie you'll definitely enjoy going to watch. So make time for it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I have a series of 5 questions that I put together that I stole this from James Lipton from Inside the Actors Studio, and not his questions, but the concept. I really like it, and something that help expose, or maybe it's know something about Chef Lou. And I'm just gonna dive right into it. If you could be any animal for a day, what would you choose and why?
It would probably have to be a cat, quite honestly. I sit there and watch my cats just like lie around and just not care. And so I guess that would be the ability to lie around and not care, because the meat grinder in my head starts going, you're doing it wrong. You shouldn't be doing this. This is wrong. You're a loser. And so anyway, so there's that.
Well, I can see that the law of detachment manifested in a cat for sure.
Mm-hmm.
If you could share a meal with anyone from any time and place, alive or dead, who would it be and what would be served?
Wow, that's a really good one there.
Thank you.
I would say probably Nikola Tesla.
Okay.
And I'll go old school. I'd say that we would dine on Chateaubriand.
Okay.
Because I know it was quite popular back in those days. He would probably enjoy that, and I know I would. So
Yeah, you have to be careful with your gout, though.
yeah,
Oh.
but
Well, we'll waive that. We'll make an exception. Yeah.
all right.
The story of your life is being filmed, which it very may well end up being.
Uh-huh.
What actor will be cast as you, and what's your theme song?
Ooh. Okay. So probably, this is all. I'm like so current events. Well, it's funny because I've been having a lot of people telling me I can't choose an actor that's dead though, right? Is that
No, sure. Go ahead. No, fine. Go ahead.
Okay. I would have
Charlie Chaplin.
I would have Robin Williams play me. So because I've actually been having people tell me that I look like Robin Williams these days. I don't know what that's about, but anyway, and it would probably be the theme song would probably be Choctaw Bingo by James McMurtry. So
Wow.
Look it up. Have you heard that?
I will. Wow.
Look it up. Yeah.
Yeah. I figured it'd be one of your original songs.
No.
The all-seeing, all-knowing oracle. You've got one question you can ask that'll be answered. Anything from all time. The truth, the honest truth. Who shot JFK? What would your question be?
At this moment in time. Is that at this moment in time?
Yeah, sure.
Shoot, I'd probably have to say, what should I do next?
That's a good one. I was saying, what's for dinner? No. Yeah.
And I mean, with regards to professionality or, profession, because quite honestly, I'm starting to get some indications that it's possible that the cheese has been moved. So, yeah. And I mean, if I've already burned through 3 careers, what's one more, So.
Well, I would be excited to see what you do next.
Yeah.
The last question I've got is probably the easiest of all 5. At the end of your life, how do you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered as a kind, gentle man.
Bingo. You're there, man. You have all kinds of fantastic music available. Can you tell us where to find Louie and the Lizards, Louie and all of your music? Where do we find you online?
Well, let's see. You can find, if you go to YouTube and type in Louie and the Lizards and look for an album cover that looks like the album's called Tastes Just Like Chicken. And it looks like a Kentucky Fried Chicken bucket, except it's green and white instead of red and white. So that's how you know that it's us. There is a group of imposters who go by the name Louie and the Lizards. And they're okay musicians, but they are not Louie and the Lizards. Not
So
the
I
one
can get
that
this up there. If I can get this up by the camera, then Louie and the Lizards.
Yeah, I have one other place where people can find some really interesting, cool stuff that I've written and collaborated on. Played a lot with a friend of mine named Steve Skinner, and if you go to steveskinner.bandcamp.com, there is a bunch of really good stuff up there. Particularly a song I wrote called "Corn," which is really pretty special. And there is a album up there called Works by Steve Skinner that has a number of songs on it. We've actually been working with a producer who is the lead singer from the Alan Parsons Project. I don't know if I ever got a chance.
That's awesome.
A guy named PJ Olson has been producing our stuff and has just done some amazing work. And I've got my bass playing and backup vocals all over.
Well, and for everybody else, down in the description, we'll have all those links provided for them. So
cool.
That's amazing. Listen, I can't say thank you enough, brother. This has been an awesome time.
It has.
Peace out.
6 o'clock, and I gotta get home, gotta get me a little sleep. If I'm late for work again today, gonna be in trouble deep. Like a brother, like my only friend. Only thing that I can count on you for is to be there till the bitter